Good morning, my viewers. Today we are covering the brewing conflict in Yemen. The Yemen crisis is not new, it has been unfolding for years now. But over the past 3 days, a series of dramatic developments has brought it back to the global attention. Two of the Arab world's greatest countries, the UAE and Saudi Arabia, have locked horns over the control of territory in Yemen. So let's dive in. To understand the current conflict in Yemen, we first need to look at the history. The early seeds of this conflict were sown by the Arab Spring in 2011. Mass protests weakened the long-time president Ali Abdullah Saleh, creating a power vacuum that allowed militant groups like Al-Qaeda to proliferate in the entire Arabian Peninsula. In 2012, Saleh stepped down and was replaced by President Mansour Hadi, launching a national dialogue to stabilize the country. The process collapsed in 2014 with mass fuel subsidy cuts triggering widespread protest, which the Houthi movement exploited. Backed by the forces loyal to the former President Saleh, the Houthis seized the capital Sana'a, demanding a greater share of power. The conflict escalated dramatically in 2015. In January, the Houthis captured the presidential palace, forcing President Hadi to resign and flee. 2 months later, Saudi Arabia joined the battle. The coalition halted a Houthi advance towards Aden, locking the country into a prolonged war. From 2016 onwards, the conflict slid into stalemate. UN peace talks failed, while Yemen plunged into one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, marked by famine risks and cholera outbreaks. Fighting intensified in 2018 around the strategic Hodeidah port, a lifeline for humanitarian aid. Now, all this crisis was man-made. It could have been avoided. Between 2019 and 2023, the Houthis increased attacks on Saudi infrastructure, while international efforts to secure a lasting ceasefire repeatedly were stalled. This war took an unintentional turn in 2023 when the Houthis began targeting Israel-linked shipping in the Red Sea, citing solidarity with Gaza. This prompted the US, UK, and other regional powers to start airstrikes on Houthi targets in early 2024. By March, a decade after launching a joint military campaign in Yemen, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, once close allies, are now on opposite sides of the same conflict. The public fallout marks one of the most serious rifts in the Arab world in decades and threatens to reshape the regional balance of power. The Yemen war began in 2014 when the Iran-backed Houthi movement seized control of northern Yemen and captured capital Sana'a. Alarmed by Iran's growing influence, Saudi Arabia and the UAE intervened a year later, backing Yemen's internationally recognized government with a shared role, defeating the Houthis and restoring stability. But over the time, the unified vision began to fracture. Years of disagreements between rival Yemeni factions gradually exposed deeper divisions between Riyadh and Abu Dhabi. At the heart of the dispute is the UAE-backed Southern Transitional Council, or STC, a separate group seeking independence from southern Yemen. Though the STC had long been part of the Saudi-backed government coalition, tensions escalated last month when its forces suddenly seized large swaths of territory in the south. This week, the conflict took an unprecedented turn. Saudi Arabia struck a UAE shipment carrying combat vehicles bound for Yemen. an extraordinary escalation between two former allies. Riyadh accused Abu Dhabi of taking highly dangerous actions that threaten Saudi national security. The Arab world's most powerful nations are now locked in a rare and public confrontation. Saudi-backed government forces have since made rapid gains, retaking Mukalla, the key eastern port and capital of Hadramaut province, from STC fighters. Control of major areas along the Saudi border has also shifted back to government forces, reversing many of STC's advances made last month. These developments have cast serious doubt on STC's plan to hold a referendum on southern independence within the next 2 years. The STC has described Saudi actions as a military escalation, saying that its forces blocked key roads leading to Aden and calling on regional and international leaders to intervene. It also accused northern Islamist factions, including the Islah Party, of targeting civilians and vital infrastructure. Despite the fighting, the STC says the Saudi-led initiative still could be a genuine opportunity for serious dialogue to safeguard southern aspirations. As Saudi Arabia and the UAE drift further apart, Yemen once again becomes the battleground for competing regional ambitions, raising fears that the war, now in its second decade, may be entering an even more volatile phase. This statement came just after Yemen's Saudi-backed, internationally recognized government announced it had retaken Mukalla, a strategic eastern port, from southern separatists who seized it last month. Rapid advances of the government forces since Friday have rolled back many of the STC's territorial gains, raising serious concerns about its plan to hold a referendum on independence within 2 years. Saudi-backed forces have already secured key positions across Hadramaut, a vast province bordering Saudi Arabia. In response, the STC fighters blocked major roads leading to Aden and appealed for regional and international interventions, warning of what they called a Saudi-backed military escalation. The UAE, the STC's main supporter, urged restraint and said that it was deeply concerned about the rising tensions. Yemen's strategic importance underlines the stakes. The country lies between the Saudi Arabia oil fields and the world's busiest lane, which controls the shipments from Europe to Asia. Overnight, Yemen's Presidential Council Chief Rashad al-Alimi requested Saudi Arabia to host talks to resolve the southern crisis. Riyadh accepted, inviting southern factions for negotiations. Separately, Council member Tariq Saleh met Saudi Defense Minister Prince Khalid bin Salman to discuss joint efforts to stabilize Yemen and safeguard the security. Meanwhile, Aden Airport was closed for a brief duration during the entire military activity. The STC and Saudi Arabia have traded blame, with STC accusing Riyadh of imposing land, sea, and air blockade of southern Yemen. The crisis began last month when the STC seized wide areas, asserting control over territory once known as South Yemen. The internationally recognized government relocated to Saudi Arabia, viewing the move as a direct security threat. Qatar has welcomed diplomatic efforts to address the dispute, even as tensions between Saudi Arabia and UAE threaten to spill into other arenas, including oil policy discussions at OPEC. Earlier this week, Saudi Arabia bombed a base in Hadramaut and demanded all remaining UAE forces leave Yemen, calling it a red line for its security. Abu Dhabi complied. The STC has since reaffirmed its demand for a 2-year transition toward a referendum on independence, while accusing northern Islamist factions, including Islah Party elements, of targeting civilians and critical infrastructure. The map here shows the areas under the control of various militias active in Yemen, both supported either by Saudi Arabia or by UAE. Yemen's southern separatist group, the STC, has called for a vote on independence as fighting intensifies in the strategic province of Hadramaut. The STC accuses Saudi Arabia of carrying out airstrikes on its forces, saying 7 people were killed and more than 20 wounded in attacks on a camp near Al-Hasha. Saudi-backed local authorities deny an escalation. Hadramaut's governor said government forces are reclaiming military sites peacefully and systematically to prevent chaos, not to declare war. Reports of clashes have emerged along the Saudi border, though control on the ground remains contested. As tensions rose, Saudi Arabia called on all parties to attend a forum in Riyadh aimed at finding a comprehensive solution to the southern issue. Hours later, the STC announced a 2-year transition toward an independent southern state, warning it could declare independence immediately if dialogue fails or attack continues. The crisis has deepened strains within the Saudi-led coalition. Riyadh and Yemen's internationally recognized government accused the UAE of backing the STC and threatening Saudi security, claims Abu Dhabi denies. The UAE has now confirmed the withdrawal of its remaining forces from Yemen, urging dialogue and de-escalation as the coalition faces its most serious internal rift in a decade. The head of the Saudi-backed Presidential Leadership Council, Al-Alimi, warned against any attempt to oppose the government's decision to prevent the country from sliding into a new cycle. To truly understand the cost of Yemen's conflict, we must look beyond headlines and into the lives shattered by years of war. What began as a small civil struggle has become one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. The UN and aid agencies estimate that more than 150,000 people have died in this war, including fighters and civilians alike. However, the real toll might be much higher than what is expected. But the deadliest impact is on the civilians, which majorly include children. An estimated of 21 million people, nearly 2/3 of Yemen's population, need urgent humanitarian assistance. Of these, 10 million are children. Malnutrition is widespread. 2.7 million children are acutely malnourished, and nearly half of children under 5 suffer from chronic malnutrition that can stunt growth and brain development. In past years, hundreds of thousands of children have died from starvation and disease linked to conflict-induced hunger. In parts of Yemen, a child dies every 10 minutes from preventable causes, mostly hunger, disease, and lack of treatment. Despite this immense human toll, global attention and condemnation often pale in comparison to other conflicts. When famine and hunger threaten civilians in Gaza, with deaths and malnutrition capturing international headlines, world leaders and media voices are quick to denounce the violence and blockade. Yet in Yemen, where hunger and war have stalked children and families for nearly a decade, sustained global outreach and political pressure have been far more muted. Yemen's plight, though repeatedly labeled the world's worst crisis globally by the United Nations, often struggles to break through geopolitical priorities and selective advocacy. This is not just a failure of diplomacy, it is a moral blind spot in how the world measures suffering. As millions in Yemen continue to starve, die from disease, or lose childhoods to conflict, the global community must ask itself, will some tragedies merit action, while others are consigned to silence? If you like this video, please subscribe. Thank you.